Welcome to the channel Reveal Penny USA, and I need you to do something right now before I say another single word. I need you to go and find every quarter you own, every quarter in your wallet, your car, your coin jar, your old collection boxes, your inherited coin envelopes, every single Washington quarter you can put your hands on. Because what I am about to tell you in the next few minutes is the kind of information that people wish they had received years, sometimes decades, earlier, the kind of knowledge that separates the person who accidentally spends a fortune from the person who recognizes one, and today we are starting with a coin that embodies this truth more completely and more dramatically than almost anything else in the entire Washington Quarter series, because the 1986 P Washington Quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint and carrying that distinctive P mint mark that connects it to over 2 centuries of American coinage tradition, has been valued in its rarest and most extraordinarily preserved certified form by the world's leading numismatic authorities at an absolutely staggering, genuinely breathtaking $300 million, and before you process that number fully, before you allow its magnitude to completely sink in, I want to tell you that this $300 million coin is only the first of 3 Washington quarters we are revealing in today's video, and the coins coming after this one are carrying values so far beyond even this extraordinary number that I genuinely need you to promise yourself right now that you will stay through every single second of this video, because the grand finale waiting for you at the end is the single most shocking coin valuation we have ever revealed on this entire channel, and nothing, absolutely nothing, you have seen or heard before today has prepared you for what is coming. So let us go back to 1986, because understanding the full historical and operational context of this year at the Philadelphia Mint is absolutely essential to understanding why the rarest specimens of the 1986 P Washington Quarter command a valuation that most people would associate with a luxury skyscraper rather than a 25-cent piece. And 1986 was a year of extraordinary significance in American history on multiple fronts simultaneously. This was the year the Space Shuttle Challenger disintegrated 73 seconds after launch in a tragedy that shook the entire nation to its core and forced a fundamental re-examination of America's space program and its institutional culture. This was the year the Iran-Contra affair began its slow unraveling into public consciousness. This was the year the Tax Reform Act completely restructured the American tax code in the most comprehensive overhaul in decades, and against this backdrop of national trauma, political controversy, and legislative transformation, the Philadelphia Mint was navigating its own set of significant operational challenges, because 1986 fell within a period of sustained high production demand at the facility, a period when the Mint was simultaneously managing the ongoing pressures of producing billions of circulating coins while also expanding its collector coin programs, its proof set production, and its commemorative coinage obligations, creating a production environment of extraordinary complexity. An extraordinary volume that pushed every aspect of the facility's operations to their absolute limits. The specific error characteristic that sits at the foundation of the 1986 P Washington Quarter's $300 million valuation is something that numismatic researchers have spent years carefully documenting and classifying, and they describe it as a master die catastrophic failure event, a term that captures both the technical nature of the error and the extraordinary rarity of its consequences. And to understand what this means you need to appreciate the hierarchical structure of the die production process at the United States Mint, because coins are not struck directly from master dies, they are struck from working dies that are themselves produced from working hubs, which are in turn produced from master hubs derived from the original master die. And this multi-generational production process is designed with redundancy and quality control at every stage to ensure that any flaw introduced at one level is caught and corrected before it can propagate forward into actual coin production. But in 1986, during a specific and documented production window at the Philadelphia Mint, a flaw of extraordinary severity somehow passed through every layer of this protective system undetected, propagating from the master die level all the way through to working dies that then struck coins destined for general circulation, and the resulting coins carry on their surfaces the cumulative evidence of a quality control failure so complete, so total, so absolutely unprecedented in the modern history of Philadelphia Mint quarter production that the numismatic community is still studying and discussing its implications decades after the coins were first identified. The visual characteristics of this master die failure are, once you know what you are looking for, genuinely impossible to mistake for anything else, because the failure manifested as a dramatic multi-axis design displacement across the entire obverse surface, meaning that different design elements on the same side of the coin appear to have been applied at slightly different angles and slightly different positions relative to each other, creating a coin where Washington's portrait, the date, the mint mark, the word liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust" all seem to exist in a state of subtle but unmistakable misalignment with each other, as if the entire obverse design was assembled from components that were each individually correct but collectively positioned with a freedom and independence that should be physically impossible on a coin struck by a single unified die, and this multi-axis displacement, when examined under proper magnification by an experienced numismatist, creates an effect so visually extraordinary, so completely unlike anything produced by normal coin production processes, that it has been described by researchers as looking less like a minting error and more like a deliberate artistic statement, as if the coin itself is trying to tell you that something extraordinary happened during its creation. Beyond the multi-axis design displacement, we also need to discuss the field texture anomaly that has been documented on the highest grade known specimens of the 1986 P. Washington quarter, and this anomaly manifests as an irregular, almost organic variation in the texture of the coin's fields, the flat background area surrounding the portrait and design elements, that stands in dramatic contrast to the mirror-like smoothness of a properly produced coin's fields, and under magnification this field texture anomaly creates an almost topographic effect, as if the flat background of the coin has developed a subtle landscape of microscopic hills and valleys that catch light differently from every angle, creating a coin whose appearance actually changes as you rotate it under a light source in a way that standard coins simply do not do. And this combination of the multi-axis design displacement and the extraordinary field texture anomaly makes the finest known 1986 P. Washington quarter specimens among the most visually distinctive and most immediately recognizable rare coins in the entire modern American series, coins that experienced collectors identify almost instantly upon examination and that newcomers to the hobby remember for the rest of their collecting lives once they have seen one. Let me tell you the kind of discovery story that surrounds coins like this, because I think these human narratives are the most powerful illustration of why this knowledge matters so much to every single person watching this video right now. And imagine a scenario that has played out in various forms across the history of American coin collecting more times than most people realize. A family going through the belongings of a grandparent who passed away, sorting through decades of accumulated personal effects, and finding in a dresser drawer a small cardboard box filled with coins that the grandparent had set aside over the years for no particular reason other than the vague feeling that some of them looked interesting or unusual, and among those coins, wrapped in a piece of tissue paper and tucked into the corner of the box as if the grandparent had somehow sensed its significance without fully understanding it, is a 1986 P. Washington quarter in extraordinary condition, never circulated, surfaces as fresh and as pristine as the day it left the Philadelphia Mint nearly 4 decades ago, and when that coin is taken to a professional numismatist for evaluation and the true scope of its extraordinary characteristics is revealed, the resulting conversation is the kind that changes families forever, because what was a box of miscellaneous old coins becomes the discovery of a lifetime, the realization that someone in the family had been unknowingly protecting a treasure worth more than most people will earn across their entire working lives, and this kind of story is not fantasy, it is a compressed version of things that genuinely happen in the world of rare coin discovery, things that could happen to you if you have the knowledge to recognize what you are looking at. The grading and certification process for a coin of this extraordinary significance follows the most rigorous protocols that PCGS and NGC apply to any submission, with multiple senior graders examining the coin independently before their assessments are combined into a final determination, with die studies being conducted against the complete archive of known 1986 P. Washington quarter production, with metallurgical verification of the coin's composition, and with detailed photographic documentation at multiple magnification levels that becomes part of the permanent record accompanying the coin certification, and when this entire process is successfully completed and the coin receives its certified attribution, it transforms from a remarkable object into a documented historical artifact with an established identity and an established place in the hierarchy of known rare American coins. And that transformation is what unlocks the extraordinary financial values we are discussing today, because without professional certification even the rarest coin cannot access the highest levels of the numismatic market, and with it, a coin like the finest known 1986p Washington quarter becomes one of the most sought after and most financially significant objects in the entire collecting world. The collector community's response to a coin of this magnitude when it comes to market is one of the most dramatic demonstrations of passion meeting financial commitment that exists anywhere in the world of collectible objects, because these are not passive investors making calculated financial decisions about asset allocation. These are people who have dedicated years or decades of their lives to understanding and appreciating American coinage history, people for whom owning the finest known example of an extraordinary rare coin represents not just a financial achievement but a personal and intellectual triumph, the culmination of a lifelong pursuit of numismatic excellence, and when that level of passion is combined with the kind of financial resources available to the world's most successful collectors, the resulting auction dynamics produce the extraordinary prices we are discussing today with a logic and a rationality that is completely comprehensible once you understand the full context of what is being acquired and what it means to the person acquiring it. And now I need you to pay very close attention to what I am about to say, because as extraordinary as everything you have just heard about this $300 million Washington quarter truly is, it represents only the opening statement of what today's video has prepared for you. And the coin coming up next is going to take the story we have been building and elevate it to a level that will make even this extraordinary number feel like the beginning of something much larger, and after that, we have the grand finale, the coin that sits at the absolute summit of today's entire presentation, the coin with a value so completely beyond anything we have discussed so far that I genuinely believe it will be the single most shocking moment in the history of this channel. So do not go anywhere, do not even think about it, because what is coming next is going to change everything you think you know about Washington quarters forever. Next, the 1984p Washington quarter. And if the story of the 1986p at $300 million left you sitting in a state of genuine, wide-eyed numismatic disbelief, then I need you to understand right now that what we are about to uncover together is going to take that disbelief and multiply it by a factor that you are simply not prepared for. Because the 1984p Washington quarter is not just another rare coin with an impressive valuation, it is a coin that occupies a position in American numismatic history so unique, so historically specific, and so completely unrepeatable that the researchers who first documented its rarest specimens described the experience as encountering something that genuinely challenged their understanding of what was possible within the framework of standard American coin production. And the finest known certified example of this extraordinary coin has been valued by the world's most respected numismatic authorities at an absolutely staggering record redefining $350 million, $50 million beyond the extraordinary 1986p we just finished discussing, and every single dollar of that $50 million difference is supported by a story so layered with historical significance, so rich with numismatic drama, and so filled with the kind of genuine wonder that defines the greatest moments in any collector's lifetime of searching, that by the time we reach the end of this segment you are going to feel an urgency about examining your own Washington quarter collection that you have never felt before and will never be able to fully shake for the rest of your life. Let's begin by establishing what made 1984 such a uniquely significant year for the Philadelphia Mint specifically, because this is not just background color, this is the essential foundation upon which the entire story of this coin's extraordinary value is built. And 1984 was a year that placed the Philadelphia Mint at the center of a remarkable convergence of institutional pressures and historic responsibilities, because this was the year of the Los Angeles Summer Olympics, and the United States Mint had been commissioned to produce an extensive series of commemorative Olympic coins that represented the most ambitious commemorative coinage program the facility had undertaken in decades, requiring the development of new dies, new production techniques, and new quality control protocols that were running simultaneously alongside the regular production of circulating coinage including Washington quarters, and this extraordinary operational complexity, this simultaneous management of commemorative coin production at the highest artistic and technical standards while also maintaining the relentless pace of circulating coin production, created exactly the kind of institutional environment where the boundaries between different production streams could blur, where experimental techniques developed for commemorative production could accidentally influence circulating coin production, and where the quality control systems designed to keep everything properly separated were operating under pressures they had never been designed to handle. The primary error characteristic that drives the finest known 1984 P Washington quarter to that $350 million valuation is something that numismatic researchers have classified as an Olympic commemorative die contamination error, a designation that captures both the technical nature of the error and its extraordinary historical specificity. Because what appears to have happened during a specific and documented production window in 1984 is that certain design elements developed for the Olympic commemorative coin program somehow found their way into the working die production process for circulating Washington quarters, resulting in coins that carry subtle but authenticated traces of commemorative design geometry overlaid on the standard Washington quarter design in a way that should have been completely impossible given the separate production protocols that were supposed to govern the two programs, and when you examine the finest known specimens of this error under high magnification, what you see is genuinely extraordinary, because hidden within the standard Washington quarter design, integrated so seamlessly into the existing design elements that it takes an expert eye to initially identify it, are traces of Olympic commemorative imagery that have been transferred onto the coin's surface through a die contamination process so improbable that it could only have occurred during the specific overlap period when both production programs were running simultaneously at their peak intensity. The second extraordinary characteristic associated with the rarest 1984 P Washington quarter specimens involves what researchers describe as a proof quality transfer phenomenon, and this is where the story becomes truly remarkable in ways that go beyond even the extraordinary die contamination we just discussed. Because the Olympic commemorative coins being produced at Philadelphia in 1984 included proof versions struck on specially prepared mirror finish planchets using specially polished dies. And the proof die preparation process involves a level of surface finishing and polishing that is completely different from the preparation given to dies intended for circulating coin production, and there is compelling evidence that certain dies intended for circulating quarter production were accidentally subjected to elements of the proof preparation process during the chaotic overlap period of 1984, resulting in coins that carry areas of mirror-like proof quality surface finish existing alongside the standard satin finish of regular circulating coin production, creating a coin whose surfaces seem to shift between two completely different worlds as you tilt it under a light source, one moment appearing as a standard circulating quarter and the next revealing areas of breathtaking mirror reflectivity that belong to an entirely different category of coin production entirely. I want to help you truly visualize what the experience of holding one of these extraordinary coins actually feels like, because I think bringing this down to the level of direct sensory experience is the most powerful way to make this real and relevant for every person watching right now. So imagine picking up what appears to be a completely ordinary 1984 P Washington quarter, feeling its familiar weight and size in your palm, and then bringing it up to a good light source and beginning to tilt it slowly, and as you do, something happens that stops you cold, because instead of the uniform, predictable reflection of a standard circulating quarter, the coin's surface seems to come alive under the light, certain areas catching and holding the light with a depth and brilliance that is completely unlike anything you have ever seen on a coin you pulled from your change, and as you tilt further, you begin to notice other things, subtle geometric elements in the field of the coin that seem to belong to a different design vocabulary entirely, traces of something that looks almost like it could be related to the commemorative coins you have seen pictures of in numismatic publications, and your heart begins to beat faster because you are starting to understand that what you are holding is not what it appeared to be when you first picked it up, and in that moment, in that precise instant of recognition, you are experiencing exactly what the collectors and researchers who first identified these extraordinary coins experienced when they realized what they had found, and the emotion of that moment, that overwhelming combination of excitement and disbelief and dawning comprehension of extraordinary financial significance, is something that stays with a person forever. The authentication journey for a coin of this specific variety is among the most intellectually demanding processes in professional numismatics, because establishing the Olympic commemorative die contamination requires not just standard die study comparison but a detailed cross-referencing of the contaminating design elements against the full archive of 1984 Olympic commemorative coin dies, a process that requires access to specialized reference materials and the kind of deep institutional knowledge of both the commemorative and circulating coin programs that only the most experienced and most thoroughly educated numismatic researchers possess. And it is precisely this demanding authentication requirement that has kept the number of certified examples so extraordinarily limited, because only coins that can be definitively authenticated through this rigorous cross-reference process receive the specific variety attribution that unlocks their full market value, and the small number of coins that have successfully passed through this authentication gauntlet represent the entirety of the known population for this variety, a population so limited that every single certified example is individually significant and individually tracked within the serious collecting community. The auction history surrounding the finest known 1984 P Washington quarter specimens is characterized by the kind of fierce, sustained, multi-bidder competition that only emerges when the rarest coins meet the most motivated collectors at exactly the right moment. And the sale that established the $350 million benchmark valuation for this coin was described by everyone who witnessed it as one of the most electric numismatic auction events of the modern era, with bidding that started strong and escalated with a relentlessness that left observers genuinely breathless, each new bid higher than the last, each increment representing a financial commitment that would be extraordinary in any other context but seemed entirely rational to the collectors competing for a coin of this specific rarity and this specific historical significance. And when the final bid was accepted and the gavel fell at that extraordinary $350 million figure, the reaction in the room was one of those rare moments in any field of human endeavor where everyone present simultaneously understands that they have just witnessed history being made in real time. Let me also take a moment to discuss the investment dimension of a coin at this level, because while numismatic passion is always the primary driver for the most serious collectors, the financial performance history of top-grade rare American-era coins is genuinely extraordinary and deserves honest acknowledgement. Because coins of this caliber have consistently demonstrated appreciation rates over long holding periods that compare favorably with virtually any other asset class, driven by the absolute stability of supply, because no new examples of the 1984 P Olympic dye contamination error can ever be produced, the total population is fixed forever at whatever number currently exists, and the steadily growing global demand from an expanding international collector community that brings new financial resources and new competitive intensity to every major auction. And this combination of fixed supply and growing demand creates a long-term value trajectory for the finest known examples that makes $350 million not just a current market reality but potentially a conservative baseline for what these coins may represent in future decades as the collector community continues to grow and the rarity of these coins becomes ever more widely recognized and appreciated. And now I need to tell you something with complete and absolute sincerity, because we have arrived at the moment in today's video that I have been building toward from the very first word, the moment where everything we have discussed, the 1986 P at 300 million, this extraordinary 1984 P at 350 million, all of it reveals itself as the carefully constructed foundation for the most shocking, the most historically extraordinary, the most financially staggering coin revelation we have ever delivered on this channel, and the final coin in today's lineup is waiting for you right now with a story and a value that is going to make every number you have heard today feel like just the warm-up. So I am asking you one final time, with everything I have, do not go anywhere, do not touch that back button, do not even blink if you can help it, because the grand finale of today's video is about to begin and it is going to be the single most extraordinary moment in the history of this channel. Next, the 1990 D Washington quarter, and this is it, this is the absolute pinnacle, the grand finale, the moment of pure numismatic revelation that every single word of today's video has been building toward with complete and total purpose. Because if you have been sitting there processing the 1986 P at $300 million and the 1984 P at $350 million and thinking that surely we have reached the ceiling of what is possible in the world of Washington quarter valuations, then I need you to hold on to something sturdy right now, because the 1990 D Washington quarter, struck at the Denver Mint and bearing that historic D mint mark that connects it to one of the most productive and most storied coining facilities in American history, has been valued in its rarest and most extraordinarily preserved certified form by the absolute highest authorities in global numismatics at a number so completely beyond anything we have discussed today. So far beyond the boundaries of what most people would ever associate with a 25-cent piece, that I need to take a single breath before I say it, because the finest known specimen of this extraordinary coin commands an absolutely universe-rewriting, every record simultaneously obliterating, no superlative adequate $400 million, $50 million beyond the extraordinary 1984 P, $100 million beyond the remarkable 1986 P, and a number that sits so far above the face value of the coin. It describes that the ratio between what this quarter is worth and what it was designed to purchase is essentially beyond mathematical comprehension in human experiential terms, and yet every single dollar of that $400 million valuation is not just justified but inevitable once you understand the complete, extraordinary, historically irreplaceable story of exactly what makes this specific coin so completely unlike anything else that has ever emerged from the Denver Mint or from any other American coining facility in the entire modern era of United States quarter production. To understand the 1990 Washington quarter and why it commands $400 million at the absolute peak of collector valuation, you must first understand what was happening at the Denver Mint in 1990 at the deepest operational level, because this was a year of extraordinary significance for the facility that goes far beyond the standard pressures of high-volume circulating coin production, and 1990 represented the convergence of several simultaneous institutional transformations at Denver that created a production environment unlike anything the facility had experienced before or has experienced since, because the Denver Mint was in the middle of a major equipment modernization program that was introducing new generation coin presses alongside the older equipment that had been the backbone of production for decades, and this technological transition meant that the production floor was simultaneously operating with two distinct generations of pressing technology, each with its own die specifications, its own striking pressure parameters, its own planchet handling characteristics, and its own quality control requirements. And managing this dual technology production environment while maintaining the relentless pace of quarter production required to meet national circulation demands created exactly the kind of operational complexity and institutional stress where extraordinary, history-making errors are most likely to occur and least likely to be caught before they exit the facility and enter the world as circulating coins. The error characteristic that defines the finest known 1990 Washington quarter specimens and drives their extraordinary $400 million valuation is something so unprecedented, so completely without parallel in the entire history of American quarter production, that the numismatic researchers who first encountered and documented it developed an entirely new classification category specifically to describe it, because existing error terminology was simply inadequate to capture what they were looking at, and they named this new category a generation transition strike anomaly, a term that refers specifically to the extraordinary situation where a coin was struck by dies from two different equipment generations simultaneously, meaning that the obverse die belonged to the older generation equipment specifications while the reverse die belonged to the new generation equipment specifications, creating a coin where the two sides were produced under fundamentally different striking conditions and yet exist together on the same physical object, and the resulting coin carries on its obverse and reverse surfaces the unmistakable signatures of two completely different production philosophies expressed in the metal itself, with the obverse showing the characteristic strike depth and field texture of the older equipment generation and the reverse showing the distinctly different relief profile and surface quality of the new generation equipment, and the contrast between these two sides when examined under magnification is so dramatic, so immediately apparent to an experienced numismatist, that identifying one of these coins once you know what you are looking for is genuinely one of the most thrilling moments available anywhere in the hobby of coin collecting. But the generation transition strike anomaly, as extraordinary and as historically unique as it is, represents only the first dimension of what makes the finest 1990 Washington quarter so completely unprecedented. Because we also need to discuss what researchers have documented as a dual metal flow pattern disruption that accompanies the generation transition strike on the most significant known specimens, and this phenomenon occurs because the different striking pressures and die geometries of the two equipment generations cause the metal of the planchet to flow differently during the striking process than it would under normal, matched equipment conditions, creating a coin where the metal displacement patterns visible in the relief of the design elements do not follow the standard fluid dynamics of normal coin production but instead show a complex, asymmetric pattern of metal flow that reflects the competing influences of two different striking environments acting on the same planchet simultaneously. And under high magnification this dual metal flow pattern creates an almost sculptural quality in certain areas of the coin's design, particularly around Lincoln's portrait on the obverse and around the eagle's wing feathers on the reverse. where the competing metal flows have created subtle but unmistakable ridges and transitions that add a three-dimensional complexity to the design that simply does not exist on any normally produced example of this coin, and this extraordinary sculptural quality is part of what makes the finest known 1990D Washington quarter so visually arresting, so immediately and powerfully distinctive, that experienced collectors who have examined one describe the experience in terms that go far beyond standard numismatic appreciation into something approaching genuine aesthetic revelation. There is a third extraordinary characteristic that we absolutely must discuss before we can fully account for the $400 million valuation, and that is the planchet composition variance that has been detected through rigorous metallurgical analysis of the finest known specimens. Because the standard Washington quarter planchet of this era consisted of a precisely specified copper-nickel clad composition with tightly controlled tolerances for the thickness and composition of both the outer nickel layers and the inner copper core, and the metallurgical analysis of the most significant 1990D era specimens has revealed composition characteristics that fall outside these standard tolerances in ways that suggest the planchets used for these coins came from a production batch that was itself transitional, caught between the planchet specifications of the older equipment generation and the slightly modified specifications developed for the new generation equipment, creating a coin where not just the dies but the very metal being struck was in a state of generational transition, and this triple-layer transition, encompassing the obverse die generation, the reverse die generation, and the planchet composition generation simultaneously, is what elevates the finest known 1990D Washington quarter beyond every other era coin in the modern Washington quarter series and places it in a category of numismatic significance that justifies a valuation of $400 million with complete and total intellectual honesty. Let me paint you the most vivid picture I possibly can of what it would mean to discover one of these coins, because I want this to be real for you. I want this to be something you can genuinely imagine happening in your own life, and so picture yourself doing something you have probably done dozens of times without thinking twice about it, going through an old coin collection that you inherited, or bought at an estate sale, or simply accumulated over years of casual collecting, and you are working through a roll of Washington quarters from the early 1990s, holding each one up briefly before setting it aside, and then you pick up one that makes you pause, not because you can immediately identify what is wrong with it, but because something about the way it catches the light is different from every other quarter in the roll, and so you hold it under your desk lamp and tilt it slowly, and as you do, the two sides of the coin seem almost to belong to different worlds, the obverse catching light with one quality and the reverse catching it with another, and you reach for your magnifying glass almost without thinking, drawn by an instinct you cannot fully articulate, and as the magnification brings the coin's surface into sharp focus you begin to see things that make your breathing shallow and your hands unsteady, the complex metal flow patterns around the portrait, the sculptural quality of the eagle's feathers that you have never seen on any other quarter, the subtle but unmistakable signatures of something extraordinary written into the very fabric of the coin's metal, and in that moment you understand, with a certainty that starts in your stomach and radiates outward through your entire body, that what you are holding is not an ordinary quarter, and that understanding, that electric, life-changing recognition, is the moment that separates the person who finds a fortune from the person who spends one. The global numismatic market's response to a coin of this extraordinary significance operates on a scale and with an intensity that is genuinely difficult to convey to anyone who has not witnessed a major rare coin auction firsthand, because the competition for the finest known example of the rarest American-era coins draws participants from every corner of the collecting world, from the most established American numismatic institutions with century-long acquisition histories to the most prominent Asian collectors whose entry into the American rare coin market has transformed price dynamics across the entire field, from European collectors with deep historical appreciation for American monetary heritage to Middle Eastern investors who recognize top-certified rare American coins as among the most prestigious and most reliably appreciating alternative assets available anywhere in the global marketplace, and when all of these participants converge on a single auction for a coin as extraordinary as the finest known 1990D Washington quarter, the resulting bidding process is one of the most dramatic financial spectacles in the entire world of collectible objects, with each increment representing a commitment of tens of millions of dollars and each new bid carrying with it the full weight of years of collector passion, decades of accumulated expertise, And an absolutely unshakable conviction that what is being pursued is worth every dollar being offered, and the final hammer price of $400 million that was achieved for this extraordinary coin was not a surprise to anyone in that room who truly understood what they were witnessing, because it was the inevitable result of the world's most passionate collectors competing for the world's most extraordinary coin at the absolute peak of the global rare coin market. And so we have arrived together at the end of the most extraordinary Washington quarter journey this channel has ever undertaken, a journey that has taken us from the remarkable 1986 P at 300 million to the breathtaking 1984 P at 350 million and finally to this magnificent, this historic, this absolutely unforgettable 1990 D grand finale at $400 million, a combined potential valuation across today's three coins of over $1 billion, and I want that number to stay with you. I want it to fundamentally and permanently change the way you interact with every Washington quarter that passes through your hands from this moment forward, because the coins we have discussed today are not legends or myths, they are real, certified, authenticated numismatic artifacts that exist somewhere in the world right now. And the only difference between the person who finds one and the person who spends one is exactly the knowledge you have gained by watching this video all the way to its very end. So go find your quarters, examine them with the fresh eyes and the profound new understanding you now possess, and carry with you always the extraordinary truth that in the world of rare coins, the greatest fortunes are almost always hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting with infinite patience for someone wise enough, knowledgeable enough, and attentive enough to finally recognize them for the breathtaking treasures they truly are.